The case of Phryne, one of ancient Athens' most infamous legal dramas, reads almost like a Greek tragedy written in real life. Phryne, a celebrated hetaira renowned for her extraordinary beauty, stood accused of impiety, a serious charge in a city where religion and civic duty were tightly interwoven. Yet, this trial was not only about morality or religious law, it revealed the complex intersection of gender, power, and the legal system in classical Athens, demonstrating how societal perceptions could sway judicial outcomes in ways that had little to do with evidence or principle. Phryne's story takes place in the 4th century BCE, during a time when the Athenian legal system was both sophisticated and intensely public. Citizens could bring charges against one another in the popular courts, Deipnosophistae, where large juries of ordinary citizens decided the outcome. Phryne was accused of asabeia, impiety, a charge that could carry severe penalties, including death. Impiety in Athens was not merely a spiritual matter, it was considered a direct threat to the polis itself. Religion was embedded into civic identity, and disrespecting the gods was seen as undermining the city's moral and social fabric. Yet Phryne's trial would become legendary not for the legal arguments presented, but for the dramatic use of her physical beauty as a form of defense. According to accounts by later writers such as Athenaeus, when her case seemed almost lost, her defender, the orator Hypereides, employed an extraordinary strategy. He reportedly disrobed her before the jury. The sight of her flawless form allegedly so shocked and awed the male jurors that they acquitted her immediately, reasoning, perhaps subconsciously, that someone so beautiful could not possibly commit acts offensive to the gods. This moment has been debated endlessly by historians and classicists, not only because of its theatricality but because it illustrates the tension between law, morality, and perception in Athenian society. The trial demonstrates that legal proceedings in Athens were as much about persuasion, spectacle, and social influence as they were about facts and evidence. Beauty became a weapon, wielded with the same precision as a legal argument. Yet, it also underscores the deeply patriarchal nature of the society. Phryne's survival in the courtroom depended not on her intellect or moral standing but on her ability to conform to male ideals of femininity and erotic appeal. The trial also raises questions about the interplay of religion and the law. In Athens, the accusation of impiety was taken seriously because it implied a direct threat to divine favor and, by extension, to the stability of the city-state. Hypereides' defense circumvented the religious gravity of the accusation by shifting focus from Phryne's alleged sacrilegious acts to the proof of her virtue embedded in her beauty, a logic that modern observers recognize as highly irrational, yet one that apparently resonated with Athenian jurors. It reflects a legal culture where emotion, spectacle, and social cues could outweigh doctrinal or evidential reasoning. Phryne's trial also speaks to the role of women in classical Athens. Hetairai like her occupied a peculiar social space, educated and independent, yet still vulnerable to exploitation and societal judgment. Unlike citizen women, who were largely confined to domestic spaces, Hetairai could influence politics and society indirectly through relationships, wit, and, as Phryne demonstrated, beauty. However, this autonomy came with constant legal and moral scrutiny. The trial reveals both the possibilities and limits of female agency. Phryne survived, but only because she could appeal to patriarchal values rather than any formal justice system. The story of Phryne has resonated through the centuries because it captures the dramatic and paradoxical nature of human judgment. Artists like Jean-Léon Gérôme immortalized the courtroom scene, portraying her naked form as a symbol of both innocence and temptation. Philosophers and historians have used her case to illustrate debates about ethics, justice, and the vulnerability of legal systems to social and emotional influence. It serves as a reminder that justice is never purely objective, it is always filtered through human perception, cultural norms, and biases. In modern terms, Phryne's trial could be seen as a study in intersectionality before the concept existed. Her gender, her profession, and her beauty intersected with the religious and legal expectations of her society, producing an outcome that was astonishingly contingent on appearance rather than principle. The case invites reflection on how law, morality, and societal expectations interact, and how attributes like social status, charisma, or even physical appearance can influence judicial outcomes. a theme that remains disturbingly relevant in contemporary discussions about gender and justice. Ultimately, the trial of Phryne is less about law and more about human psychology and culture. It reminds us that legal systems are not insulated from social prejudices or the sway of public opinion. Beauty, as an element of persuasion, was weaponized in a way that defied the formal logic of law, but it also exposed deeper truths about the society that allowed such reasoning to prevail. The narrative endures not only because of its sensational nature but because it crystallizes enduring questions about fairness, power, and the limits of legal reasoning. Phryne's trial also encourages us to consider the performative nature of law in any society. In Athens, as in many places today, the courtroom was not just a venue for truth-seeking but a stage where persuasion, theatrics, and social signals could decide fates. Hypereides' strategy, shocking as it seems to us, reflects an acute understanding of human behavior and the psychology of judgment. From this perspective, Phryne's case becomes a window into Athenian culture, its values, its gender dynamics, and its conception of justice as a human, rather than purely legal, enterprise. In conclusion, the trial of Phryne demonstrates how the ancient Athenian legal system operated at the intersection of law, religion, and societal norms. It is a striking example of how personal attributes, especially those linked to gender and beauty, could shape outcomes in ways that defied legal rationality. Her story has echoed through history as both a cautionary tale and a captivating narrative of human drama, illustrating the fragility and performativity of justice when social perception wields more influence than evidence. The trial remains an enduring symbol of the paradoxical interplay between morality, aesthetics, and law, reminding us that justice has always been as much about society's eyes as about the facts of the case.